Let's talk about the new moon that is coming up in Sagittarius very soon. I believe it is on Monday, and we'll look at the date specifically once I share my screen, because as Mercury is preparing to retrograde, my mind is struggling a little bit with details and words. So let's dive right in and take that as a cue that we can go right into the chart here with this new moon happening in Sagittarius on 12/12 at 6:32 a.m. East Coast time. I cast this for Washington, D.C. Because that is the nation's capital. So if I'm looking at like, how does this affect the nation? I'll use the capital of the nation. It represents the condition of the whole nation. So what we're looking at is you can adjust this for your time wherever you're at. It's going to be relative to whatever time is 6:32 p.m. East Coast time, whatever that is for you in your time zone. That's going to be when it is as well. So we see this is a new moon. The moon and the sun are conjunct. They're not the only ones conjunct with each other, though. But the new moon is, of course, by definition, a conjunction between the moon and the sun. And this is because the moon is now in line with the sun from our perspective. So even though the moon is closer to us, the sun's brighter. So the sun does drown out the moon so that we can't see it. And that is why the moon is new. It is burned up and being reborn in the sun. This is actually considered a Kazemi moment for the moon, and we get this every month. So the moon is reborn and purified. Now, this is in Sagittarius, so we're thinking about Sagittarian themes, exploration, philosophy. We're thinking about higher education, perhaps, things that expand our mind, thinking about letting things have fun, letting things feel expressive, very Jupiterian. And to that end, we are noticing then what is Jupiter doing and how is Jupiter supporting this? Jupiter is up here, still retrograde, really trying hard to get to that stationary degree that will happen at the very end, actually around New Year's Eve at the end of December. Jupiter will finally station direct again. But we can notice that Jupiter is having conversations. Jupiter is applying to this sextile with Saturn because Jupiter is moving backwards and Saturn is moving forwards. They are considered to be applying. Jupiter is now in trine, though this is again separating because Mercury is moving ahead and Jupiter is moving backwards. So they're kind of going away from each other. They're in trine with Mercury. So potentials to still use communication, and especially communication about deep issues that support longevity in a relationship or in an agreement. And Jupiter has this opposition that is again separating by a little bit with Venus, who is unfortunately detriment in Scorpio, but she receives Jupiter because she rules Jupiter's sign. So a little bit of astrology gymnastics here to tie that all together. We have the sun and the moon, new moon, in Jupiter's sign. And then we say, okay, how's Jupiter doing? Jupiter happens to be in conversation with the ruler of Taurus, which is the sign that Jupiter is in. So we're kind of drawing a connection of ruler of Sagittarius is Jupiter, ruler of Jupiter is Venus, and that's where we're going with that. So back over here, we also have to take into account that Mars is conjunct with this new moon. So that's going to add a very martial flair to it. There might be extra ambition, extra impulsiveness, possibly extra frustration. To keep in mind, as Mars is still not quite out of that 15-degree range away from the sun. So Mars is working on rising from the beams of the sun as a morning star. So if we were to flip this around and imagine that the sun was rising, knowing that the chart moves in a circular motion this way, if the sun were rising, Mars is rising ahead of it. And that makes Mars a morning star. So because the planet rises ahead of the sun, it is visible in the morning as the sun is rising or before the sun is rising, and Mars is preparing to become visible in that way, so that we will notice that. Again, Mars's Cazimi with the sun was on November 18th. So as the sun is pulling ahead and getting faster than Mars in that sense, we see that Mars will be more visible in the morning than in the evening. Not quite yet, though, because of the proximity. Mars is still in the beams of the sun, much like the moon. You'd have to go blind to see him. Please don't do that. Don't look straight into the sun. It doesn't go well. So we have this new moon with martial themes now added into it. We might feel very excitable. We might feel, again, impulsive. So this is something to think about, like, where do you want to channel your excitement? And so, looking again at Jupiter, we talked about that a little bit. Let me just make sure. Yeah, stationing direct on December 30th, opposite Venus, trine Mercury, sextile Saturn. So we're talking about this a little bit, just knowing that we're going to feel excitable. We might want to talk to people about things. That's a really great way to make use of this. We might notice that we might feel excitable, but the things that we want to do might take until the end of the month or so before we can actually put them into action. And there may be people involved that we want to be cautious about our relationship with. Just thinking about how will this affect other people that we're in relationship with. Venus is in detriment, but she still has a lot of influence and a lot of say in what Jupiter's up to. And Jupiter, of course, rules this lunation. So as you're feeling impulsive and excitable, make sure that as you're honoring that feeling for yourself, that other people are also a consideration if they need to be. So that's a basic thing. We're also looking at the very next day after this. We talked about Jupiter and Mercury. Mercury is going to hang out here. And then if we pop this forward a day, we're going to notice he hangs out there and then goes backwards just in time for the moon to catch up with him. So the next day, of course, Mercury will station retrograde as well. So these conversations, again, are ones that may deserve to take time. This is something that it's sort of I really want to do this. Now, who needs to know about it? Who do I need to inform? What do I need to put into effect to prepare for this? Which is something that you might spend the rest of December doing. I'm really excited about this, about a trip. You spend the month packing or preparing for the trip, which would be totally appropriate for a Sagittarius new moon. But thinking about, again, who's involved, who needs to be informed, what preparations need to be made, and how can you allow that excitement to travel with you as you prepare for it. So it doesn't have to be like a bummer that you can't have it right now, so you're not allowed to be excited. It's how can we extend and expand this excitement as we are preparing to do whatever it is we want to do in the correct and best way. So an affirmation that I have chosen for this is I'm exploring and experiencing the world in my best way and at my pace, because we do have these planets that are feeling a little at a standstill. So doing it your way, not caving to any pressure that you might feel from that Mars saying, do it now, do it now, do it now. And you're like, I actually do want to wait. I think I can do this better if I give myself my pace, if I honor my timing. So ask yourself why you believe what you believe, and then trust your gut to respond. If someone says, hey, do you want to do this? Trust your gut, trust your instincts, trust your version of intuition and your clear senses to be able to guide you on that as well. And you'll have a pretty, hopefully exciting, fun, and vital feeling new moon as we approach Mercury retrograde, come to the conclusion of Jupiter retrograde, and really sink into this season where so many holidays are celebrated. And I hope yours are going exceptionally well also.